I I have to say, I think those of us who live in the sticks
Yes.
are very, very blessed. I mean, I exchanged emails with somebody the other day who lived in London, well,
Mm.
like you do, and I mean, he was just losing it. He was just how do you stay sane?
What in terms of what? Well, you probably have land, although I probably insulted you by calling it a garden. Well, suburbia has its benefits. I couldn't handle the mud and the dirt in the country. I already know that. I know that. So I couldn't handle it. I'd have to have help. I'd have
What,
to have a lot of help. So yeah, yeah.
one of the things you realize when you study kind of the the big picture, let's say, you realize that they are trying to get us to move from they're trying to drive us out of the country into the big cities. So
Oh,
know
really?
you're conforming with the plan.
I have
Yeah,
moved out.
they
I can
don't.
tell you. How dare you say that?
Because no,
Um,
because country people are free. Country people
yeah,
are
I know
tend
they're
to be much more rebellious. They tend,
self-sufficient and stuff. Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah.
get that, but I also know my limits. I also think that if you've got kids, my kids at my age, you do spend a lot of time in the car. You sort of have images of them frolicking through the fields, but I would imagine there's a fair amount of time spent carting them from here to there, etc. So,
Oh, there's so much of that. So
yeah.
much, so
So
much
I
driving.
would,
You can't.
yeah. I think I don't think you should be sort of rose tinted about it either. Whereas we just try and get ours out as much as possible, but with less driving. So
Mm.
yeah. Anyway, because
You seem
yeah.
you're seeming quite sane this week, Laura.
No, I'm
Is
not.
it, but I'm this is sort of false sanity. I'm suspecting it's the
Yeah.
kind of the sanity of somebody in the mental institution who's realised that
There's
they're
no
going to be
point.
stuck there
Yeah.
forever, and so they may as
Conformity.
well kind of take the pills from Nurse Ratched.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, we'll get into. I was pretty angry on Sunday, but I am. Obviously, it's off a terrible tragedy. But there is an. I've just tweeted. There is an element of comedy to this idea. The police are going to be patrolling nightclubs in order to protect women. So the fornication police are now
Ah,
with us. Yeah, I'm wondering if they're going to.
this is
Yeah,
extraordinary. I
because
mean,
nothing could go wrong with that plan, right?
when
Nothing.
well, yeah, when somebody who is we can't definitely say he was a policeman. He's only an alleged suspect or something. Is that the right? Have I
Yeah, no,
covered
you
my
need
arse
to be
now,
very
Laura? Am I
careful.
not going to get
Yes.
sued now?
No, well, it's not that you get
Okay,
sued, you just don't want to collapse the trial. So,
that would
yeah,
be awful, wouldn't it? God,
that would be
imagine
awful.
if this podcast
No,
collapsed the
well,
trial
just anyway,
of a.
what point were you going to make?
The point I was going to make was that when this incident happened, I did not feel that as a man I was responsible
No.
because of my
Yes.
sex. I thought this is an evil nutcase who doesn't represent me at all.
Yeah.
And I would hate my boys to feel any different.
Mm.
It seems an appalling turn of events. That terrible Lib Dem peer, was it Jenny
Yes.
Jones? Something.
Yes. Yeah.
Or
I
was
know.
she green? I
I know.
forget. They're the same difference.
They're the
But
same
but
thing.
whoever it was who sort of trying
Yeah.
to make out that this was a kind of a new thing that men have started doing, and they're kind of men should be banned or whatever she was saying. I just think
A
it's crazy.
curfew, a curfew for men at 6, because clearly the men responsible for this alleged terrible crime are those who are either, at home watching Netflix or putting their kids down or working or whatever it might be. They somehow are criminally responsible. But actually, this is just again another limb of identity politics. And it is important because, I mean, we had it with Me Too, in that as a whole, it undermines due process. Because
Yeah.
what they're doing, of course, is sort of an element of collective punishment, is a slander, but you can only do it against certain groups. So obviously, if you have an Islamic terrorist, well, no one would be calling for, a curfew on Muslims, because that would obviously be a bad thing. But if a man does something heinous, then it's fine to slander and generally impose collective punishment on all men. So again, it depends on who the victim is, it depends on who the perpetrator is, and where they are on the identity politics scale. So it's all awful, but it's undermining Enlightenment principles such as you say, due process, individual responsibility, criminal responsibility, etc. But as I said, and then out of it, I mean, this is from The Guardian. This is Boris's plan. Yeah, they're going to put police in and around nightclubs and outside, the chipper, I guess, and the kebab shop to tackle predatory men. Now, I do think you do get predatory men outside the kebab shop and the nightclubs who will try and prey on women who've had too much to drink. And I personally don't have much of a problem against the fornication police being out there. But I just want the feminists to accept that this would be a form of protectionism. This would be a form of men coming in to protect women who are vulnerable one way or the other, either to drink or just because they happen to be women, from predatory men. But they won't. They will. I don't know how they'll spin it, but it's clearly essentially a throwback to chaperones. If it was your previously be your brother, your dad, right, who'd be out there, or maybe an older brother who'd go out with you have two boys and a girl, so I don't know if they ever go out together, but you would have had that in the past, brothers going out with younger sisters, and the old, if you go near my sister, I'll kill you. But feminists would denounce that as, but now you're acting like she's your property. How very dare you do that? Well, now you're just outsourcing exactly the same kind of protection racket to the state. Fine. I don't care. But,
How are the police going to find time to do this when they're so busy making sure that people don't touch each other in parks, and they go. I went to the north at the weekend to defy the lockdown.
Yeah.
And I hung out with some people, and I heard horror stories about in Newcastle. The police in Newcastle just are obsessed with the idea of catching students having illegal parties.
Yeah.
And somebody described this house of girls, and they've got this nosy neighbour who likes nothing better than just peering out of his window and reporting them to the police every time a male comes along. You imagine what it's like being in a house of 5 girls and you can't see men because your neighbour reports you, and the police come round. And one time they had a chap coming round, and the police tried to smash the door down. I mean, for what? For an age group that is going to be asymptomatic. I'm sure that every student in the country is. I mean, you see how they mingle. They don't. Most of them don't care, and rightly so. And that, of course, is how a virus becomes endemic, and that's a good thing, not a bad thing. You can't kill these. You can't have a zero virus policy. It just doesn't work. It's just not how
totalitarian state. Yeah.
Well, you can.
Well,
possibly.
This brings us to Clapham, because, as I said, I was very angry on Sunday. To see these MPs. So the main thing the viewer needs to get from the news right now is that there's 2 agendas right now. One is save Boris Johnson. Well, 3 overlapping. One is save Boris Johnson's ass over everything. 2 is try and make sure that we convince everybody going forward that the lockdown was a great idea. And 3, of course, is to ratchet up the hatred against the non-vaccinated. So that's the aim.
Yes.
So Clapham kicks off on Saturday night over Sunday, and you get all of these MPs, right, coming on, people who have voted these laws in that essentially abolish the right to protest. And then
10-year prison sentence.
Yeah. And then the police have the temerity to actually enforce the laws the MPs have passed. So who do the MPs turn on? The police. And I mean, I tell you, you have to see the Tory press, because they really irritate me now more than anybody else. I'm not going to name names, but we know who the Tory press are, and their sole agenda. Their sole agenda is to protect Boris Johnson. So you can just imagine, on Saturday night, the memo went out from Number 10, trust me. Blame the police. This is the line. Blame the police, blame the Met, and throw that Carissa Dick person under the bus. Now, I can give and take all of these people. I'm not one necessarily to defend them, overall, but I can see hypocrisy, front and center. And you're just like, first of all, since when did the Daily Mail, who went really hard against the police, by the way, and the Telegraph, since when was their line, soft on crime, let's trash the police? That's new. I mean, I expect that from the Guardian.
Yeah.
But the fact that you see it rolled out by Richard Littlejohn, he ran one of his feet on the Mail going, oh, how very dare the police do this, and these poor women on the common and blah, blah, blah. And you just can tell this is solely to protect Boris Johnson's ass. Priti Patel then is another one who is like now jumping along my loathing ladder above Matt Hancock and Boris Johnson, right? Every Monday she likes to retweet something from one of these like Newcastle police forces that have broken up a dangerous house party going, well done police. Our police are there to enforce the law. They're protecting the NHS and they're protecting all of us. Yeah, the Twitter feed was quite quiet on Monday. She wasn't retweeting any of the police forces that, were being like, look, we've broken up this couple on the park bench. Now that was all silent. Now it's all like, oh, I'm really upset about the images. Yeah, and Clapham Common, so upset. You passed a law that caused that, you Nazi. Sorry, in your tactics.
Yeah, no.
I'm just the MPs or the media go with it, go along with it. It's just like even Andrew Neil, the hard hitting. I hold all politicians to account. Are like, yeah, it's looking bad, that whole police thing. You're like, you maybe you should point out the fact that the law they were enforcing the laws these MPs imposed, but then that would undermine your entire lockdown fanaticism.
It's all pantomime anyway. It was interesting. For example, after the Clapham Common demo, my colleague Kurt Zindalka went to film there was a protest in Parliament Square.
Yes.
And the police policed it very, very lightly. Why? Yeah. Because Black Lives Matter hijacked it, and so once Black Lives Matter were in there, it was immune from police action. But the Clapham Common thing, there was something very suspicious about it. I'm sure that there were a number of women who went along in good faith.
Yeah,
they were attending a vigil, but I also think that there were crisis actors involved. I mean,
agree.
that red-haired woman who was photographed very photogenically, I thought. It was perfectly framed and stuff.
It was amazing.
Something very suspicious about. People have looked into her background, and she is actually a crisis. You know what crisis actors are? I mean, these are people who are paid to appear in these scenarios and further an agenda. And whether she was paid or not, I don't know. But there was definitely something suspicious about the whole business. And this is another dodgy thing that was going on. That this was a cause that was very much embraced by the left, the hard left, which up until now has been really pushing the authoritarian agenda.
Yeah, exactly.
The government's agenda, the lockdowns and the vaccines and everything. I don't trust the hard left when it affects to take up the mantle, take up the cause. Of police overreaction and suddenly decides that it doesn't want to live in an authoritarian state, when quite clearly the left does. The left very much wants that. If you look at Keir Starmer, for example, there was really not a cigarette paper's difference between his view on the lockdowns and stuff and Boris Johnson's. They're all part of the same problems. He's trilateral commission. I mean, he's really bad. He's Great Reset. So there may be some Labour MPs who one can trust, and I suspect they're probably on the Corbynite wing of the Labour Party.
Yeah.
They're the mavericks.
Yeah.
But I had the odd situation this morning of finding myself sharing a barricade with Jess Phillips MP. Because you notice that the Labour MPs have come out against this bill, this iniquitous bill that the government that they've voted through, pretty much nem com, I think, as far as the Conservatives were concerned. But it's frightening. I mean, have you read the section on protests? If a single individual can
Yes,
claim to have been
I know,
seriously
annoyed.
inconvenienced. I mean,
Yes.
how do you assess that?
Look,
Then
yeah.
you are potentially liable for a 10-year jail sentence. Well, that,
No, it's
as you say,
outrageous.
that
And I tweeted
ends the
against
right to
it.
protest.
I tweeted against it. I tweeted any decent left winger who tweeted against it. I was like, yeah, I agree. I don't. It's always generally the principle, not the person. I mean, Jess Phillips can be good, but again, huge amount of cakeism by Jess Phillips. She again. So anybody who was like, this is outrageous. I'm like, okay, but did you ask for an exemption for the right to protest when you were backing up Boris Johnson on his COVID fascism lockdown? Because if you didn't, then you don't get to be outraged now. Sorry, you don't. And in terms of course, I do have some criticism for the left and all that, but I'm kind of, because I'm on the right, I criticise obviously Boris Johnson and the Tory, and particularly the Tory press, more because in a way I hold them to higher standards. I expect the left to be authoritarian. And anyway, the left, they wouldn't listen to me anyway. I expect them to be authoritarian, but I didn't expect this from, the lads. And the Tory press are just awful. I mean, Adam Bolton, who's been pushing this lockdown, as much as anybody, again, running the bad scenes from Clapham. Oh, right, I don't remember Sky News, even, this is the thing, even if you were for the lockdown, I don't remember a single person saying we should have an exemption for peaceful protest. I don't remember Sky News running that line. I don't remember Jess Phillips running that line.
Adam Bolton is appalling. He's like a
you got to point it out though. That's the thing.
He's got the intelligence of an amoeba, which I find really shocking. Because do you know he was taught by the same guy as me at university?
You guys.
We had the same tutor. He read English, and almost everyone who studied under my man Peter Conrad was turns out to be super bright, super free thinking. Adam Bolton, it's like he might just as well have been taught by Jess Phillips, frankly, for all the intelligence he ever shows on any issue. He is such a lump. It's actually, you know what he is? He's like a sea slug.
Okay,
you squeeze them and all the water. Yeah. He's a sea slug.
But it's. I mean, look, it wasn't just him. I don't like to name names now because I'm terrified of being sued. But they were all out there in arms.
Nora, it's not actionable, is it? Calling somebody a sea slug, a fat, stupid sea slug. That's not actionable, is it?
No.
It's fair comment.
No, it's not. No, okay. No, but there was something else there about the exemption. Oh yeah, the other thing was because a lot of people were pointing out again that they were so nice to Black Lives Matter and Extinction Rebellion, which is true, and then they were mean to the girls on the common. Now, I defend the right to protest for all of these groups. Peaceful I don't agree with their agenda. They obviously should have a right to peaceful protest for every single one of these groups. I don't care how hideous they are, apart from the Nazis or something. But there was a law change. So when Extinction Rebellion and Black Lives Matter were protesting last Sunday, there was some leeway, there was some exemption for peaceful protest. But when Boris pushed down through the latest lockdown, they tightened that up completely because, of course, they didn't want anti-lockdown protesters. So that will be one of the reasons that the police policed it in the way they did, is that there really is zero exemption. Oh, yeah, this was it. And then suddenly I noticed this word flying around, okay, because it's quite a legal word. Well, I mean, everybody knows what it means, but it's very important. Proportionate. We need to be proportionate, though. The lockdown must be proportionate. And I'm like, my entire... Pretty much all of the blogs I've written has said, even if you argue it this way or that way, it fails the test of proportionality. And no, I've never heard a single journalist say it, single MP say it, and then all of a sudden, this isn't proportionate. The entire lockdown is disproportionate. What's wrong with you? And it's like, but the right to protest is so important. Yeah, well, my kid's right to go to school is really, really important. And Jack's right to go to work down the road, that's also really important. But it's just that you like to pick and choose. You like to pick and choose your rights, and if it fits a left-wing agenda, then if that's crushed, that's an outrage.
That's so true. So let's not be applauding the leftists for...
No,
have you noticed as well how...
Go on.
Have you noticed as well how the the government's spin machine is promoting this. They're focusing on things like, and we're going to clamp down on travellers camping in a field next to you and ruining your village. And these are the kind of tough laws that you want. And they're pretending. Oh yes. And if you damage a statue, from now on, it's going to be, you're going to be hung, drawn, and quartered, whatever. But actually, this is just, none of this is necessary. You think about the statues, for example. Think about what happened in Bristol when the statue of Edward Colston was dragged off its plinth and dragged and dumped into the docks. Well, that was done with the full support of the local police. I mean, one of the local policemen even celebrated this and felt no need to intervene in this obvious damaging of public property. He was on the side of the rioters. So it's not really a question of, do we have laws in place tough enough to deal with this? We had those laws already. I'm sure that the same applied to travellers. I'm sure that the same certainly applied to statues. If the police weren't so woke, they would already have enforced this stuff. So what you've got is a Tory government pretending that they are answering their electorate's prayers, and they're finally giving them the red meat by introducing these draconian laws which previously have not been available to defend property and life, etc. But it's just not the case. What they've done is put on the statute books, which makes tyranny much, much more possible.
No, I know.
That's what's so frightening about it.
Yeah. No, I agree. And the other get out. Okay, so the left suddenly found the value in proportionality. So then the other thing, and you got a lot of this from the Tory police as well, was but the police, they need to use their discretion. They need to use their discretion. So what this means is, okay, basically breaching the rule of law. So can you please impose the law, the lockdown law, against people who no one cares about, and people want really strict enforcement, like your students in Newcastle, right? Or anything, somebody sitting on a car, on a bench having a coffee, or even or for the Tory press, even Black Lives Matter. But when the enforcement of the law makes us look bad, like against the women holding a candle on the Clapham Common, just don't bother enforcing that law, please, because it makes the Tories look bad on our woke-ometer, right? But that, dear viewer, would undermine the rule of law, because of course you have to apply the law equally against everybody. You can't pick and choose your favourite protest. So, okay, I'm going to enforce it against Black Lives Matter because then I'll get some Tory support, and I'll enforce it against the anti-lockdown dudes because we all know they're scum. But I won't enforce it against the women in Clapham because that makes me feel a bit icky.
Or against Extinction Rebellion because they're actually on board with Boris's green agenda, and actually they're just pushing it an open door.
Exactly. So that would breach the rule of law. And I would say, so the police do have some discretion, obviously, as the prosecutor, in applying the law, but it can't be used arbitrarily. So you can't literally, again, because then you could have like, all right, I'm gonna enforce it against the black guy, but I'm not going to enforce it against the white guy. Okay, you'd have a completely discriminatory system, right? You can't have that level of discretion, but that's essentially what all the Tory press were running on Saturday night and Sunday. And it was just, it's just disgusting. They're just awful. And again, it feeds back into my first point. Everything now is Operation Save Boris Johnson. That's what it is. Just save his ass.
Well, I'd say it is. And part of that is divide and rule.
Yeah.
So many of these tactics are classic. It could have come out of Machiavelli, couldn't it? The way, for example, that they've now quite successfully split us resistance into camps between those who think the vaccine is the savior and those who think it's an absolute nightmare, totalitarian nightmare. I mean, for example, Toby, Toadmeister, Cuckmeister, tweets out this morning something sort of typically sanctimonious about how rare the side effects are of these alleged vaccines, which aren't vaccines. And I'm thinking, actually, Toby, it's really not your business to be playing the game of big pharma. You actually, there aren't that many sites called lockdown skeptics resisting this bollocks, and for you to kind of be acting on behalf of, sort of reaching for the smelling salts anytime anyone suggests that maybe the vaccine companies aren't playing a straight bat here, and that possibly there are many more side effects than are being acknowledged. I mean, I've heard that journalists trying to sell stories to newspapers about the people's bad experiences, and there are many. I mean, how many anecdotes have you heard about people having?
Yeah.
I tell you what really upsets me, Laura,
Yes.
and this should upset you, particularly given your current state, is I hear of NHS workers, women, particularly young women, being unable to conceive. The baby won't stick. That in the early stages, they just cannot get pregnant.
Yeah.
Having had this, having been railroaded into taking this vaccine. Well, this is what I try to explain this to my kids. I know that it's gonna stick, but I say to them, look, I don't mind you taking heroin, because okay, you're probably not going to OD, and you're probably going to have a fine time of it. I don't mind you getting drunk one night, but this mRNA tinkering substance, experimental substance, still in its experimental phase till 2023, with no liability for the manufacturer. But hello, this is a mistake you're going to regret for the rest of your life, and possibly for your children's and grandchildren's lives. This is different.
Yeah, well, I mean, I definitely would take, I think people should take their time and consider it. I'm not as kind of, as hardline as
you're not as hardcore as me, but of course you're not there. Yeah.
What I don't like, of course, is the vaccine coercion. And this is the new line. If you've seen, I mean, again, so not only have we had a lockdown, now they are basically going to coerce people into taking, as you say, an experimental vaccine. So I noticed yesterday on Twitter, there was a letter sent out it was obviously a reply to somebody who'd sent a please don't introduce a vaccine passport, which is essentially a system of coercion. If you are getting the vaccine just so you can get a vaccine passport, you're not
giving. Which most people are.
Yeah, which most people are. You're not giving a free consent. Your consent is nullified. So this guy, let me see, he was a Tory MP, and his reply. So this is going to be the line now, right, James and viewer. His reply to somebody saying, please don't introduce a vaccine passport. This was from John Stevenson MP, and he goes into he goes, it's important not to discriminate against those who have a legitimate reason for not taking the vaccine, such as medical conditions. But it would be difficult to justify holding back the reopening of society and compromising the rights and liberties of everyone else because of those who refuse the vaccine without a legitimate reason for doing so. Ooh. So do you see what he's done? See what he's done there. So it's not his fault. Yeah, it's not his fault, who again has voted for these tyrannical, draconian laws. If the lockdown is extended, it'll be your fault. It'll be the minority of people who refuse the vaccine. Let's blame them. Now that is actually, nearly kind of, you're nearly in hate speech territory. So they're going to get everybody, if they do extend the lockdown, right, or they do something ridiculous, the line run will be, not enough people have taken up the vaccine, and you're going to be public enemy number one. And it's really disgusting. Again, they blame that it's not the police. As I said, it's not the police's fault. It's not the demonstrators' fault. It's not the kids going to school. It's not their fault. This lockdown none of it is their fault. It's the fault of Boris Johnson and all his crony MPs who have voted these laws in. Everybody needs to remember that. That's the first principle. And this idea, that we're going to blame, as you said, a minority of people who aren't going to take the vaccine for whatever. The only legitimate reason you need for refusing the vaccine is, I'm refusing the vaccine. End of story. You don't need to give it a reason.
What do you think is going to happen?
Don't need to explain. That's it. That's your reason.
What do you think is going to happen in a world where, for example, I think a much higher number of people in America, something like getting on for 50%, are not interested in taking the so-called vaccine. And what's more, you've got I think we mentioned this last week. You've got states opening up. I mean, if you go to Florida,
yeah,
Florida is like
and Texas.
Florida is the old normal. Florida,
Yeah.
yeah. The only reason, my only problem with Texas is that, well, Austin, number one, and number two, it's got bloody wind turbines everywhere. And I think that's the reason not to move to Texas.
Right.
But Florida is just like, I mean, I've seen photographs. It's like it's almost like lifestyle pornography. You know, you look at these people in a bar having fun. None of them are wearing masks. It's quite extraordinary. So how is Boris the creepy? Well, I mean, I don't wonder because I know he's got a black ops department and propagandists and all sorts of things. But how can he seriously keep a straight face behind his ridiculous mask? And claim that this is a deadly threat that we all need to be vaccinated for, and we can't open up until we do. When across the pond, you've got this live experiment being conducted, where a control, if you like, where we see that actually you can live a normal life and people aren't going to die in droves, and actually it's all okay. I mean, thank God for states that individual states do have rights in America. But I never mind the collapsing president, but I still look across America.
The land of
America
free.
For hope.
Some hope.
Land of the free. Yeah.
Look,
well,
I think
President Reagan said that if freedom ends in America, it ends everywhere.
Yeah, still the last great hope. Look, I think they would still have their backs against this vaccine, up against these vaccine passports. I mean, I think a lot of it has just been used to rack up people actually getting it.
Totally.
Which has been effective, because a lot of people just say, oh, I got the vaccine so that I can have a pizza in like Francomanca's, which, I mean, I like Francomanca's, but I'm not going to risk my health to have a pizza there. So it may well be they think job done, in that we have scared enough people to take the vaccine, etc. Also, the European countries aren't playing ball right now, right? I mean, they're U-turning all over this vaccine. And also, even in the Times, as I said, I read it so you don't have to, a couple of days ago, they did the list of countries that you could travel to. And I know some people don't like it. Nearly all of them were like either passports. Some were like no passports, either vaccine passport.
Turkey.
Yes.
Turkey's looking good.
Yeah.
I'm quite fancy. I bet the lira is
really
low, isn't it?
I would imagine.
By the way,
no. Or so just viewers so they know, or just a negative COVID vaccine test. So if Michael Gove was running around going, oh, but you won't be able to go to like Benidorm without your vaccine passport in Spain, are like, actually, we'll take them. Just give me the COVID negative test. Now there's problems with that; it's expensive, but we'll take them. Then Gove is looking like a right fool. So look, it depends on how nasty they want to be. They're nasty. They're a nasty bunch. They may just say, you know what,
they're really nasty.
Yeah.
Oh, look,
they're really nasty.
In the background.
It is. I said on Twitter the other day, I was like, it's not good that Michael Gove is so quiet, but then you do need silence when communicating with the Dark Lord.
Right.
So he's in.
You do.
Yeah. You don't want any interference when I could get sued for that, when communicating with the dark side. So who knows? Who knows what they can do?
I don't. No, Laura. Can I say, as your legal advisor, it is not slander to say that Michael Gove confused with the dark. With the Dark Lord. I mean, that's a given. I think that's eminently provable.
I agree.
Have you noticed how so 10, I can't remember, 10, 11, 12 countries have now rejected the AstraZeneca vaccine, the Oxford vaccine.
Again, but yes.
And have you seen how this story is being spun in the media? It's being spun as a horrible European nations reject honest British vaccine because they're stupid Euro people.
Dan Hannan. This is Dan Hannan's line in the Daily Mail. This is what he ran with it like I'm trying to think the analogy. Yeah, but he just went like the good little puppy that he is, like the good little lapdog. Dan, can you run with this? There's another excuse to trash the Europeans. Sure, let's go. Right? Yeah, I know. And he's gone. I mean, he's so far gone.
He's after that ball.
He's off there. No, he's out with Boris's other lapdog. The actual, what's the dog's name? The actual lapdog. Yeah.
Blondie.
Yeah. Well,
No,
Blondie, I tell you,
that was
he's
somebody
got
else's dog.
he's got a all right. He's got a crew, that dog, I tell you, and they're gone. They love it. You know, the Spectator, Dan Hannon, they love it.
It's great. It's a really it's another sign that Brexit. What was that about? Oh yeah, it was really Brexit was so important, and it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter that we've got a kind of fascist dictatorship in Britain because we voted Brexit 6 years ago.
We got angry over the bendy bananas. I mean, I can't actually go out now and buy a bendy banana, barely, because of the lockdown. But you know, we don't have to. We can have bendy bananas now if we want. Okay, Dan, sure, great idea.
Yeah, it is. It is so brave new world, isn't it? That I was thinking about. Okay, so we're living in absolute tyranny, and yet we can go to the supermarket and we can get pomegranate syrup to make fatanjan or whatever. Or we can make any number of exotic foreign recipes. We can buy black beans either dried or in a tin. We can buy we can't buy foie gras, but we can buy most good things, and we can get our weed. Weed is de facto, if not de jure, legal
I do
now,
not
and you can get it.
That, viewer, that's James.
No. I know you don't. No, but you've probably got your own poisons. You know, you probably like a drink. Do you like a drink?
Not now.
No. Okay, well
I did, but I cannot now. Obviously, I did have a drink on Sunday for the first time since January, and it was very nice. Because I'm past.
Well, anyway, my point was that we live in it's not like living in North Korea. It's like living in a kind of a holiday camp. Which is sort of run on the lines of North Korea, but with added luxuries. So you've got the illusion that you're living in the old world, and you can be drugged up to the eyeballs on most things, and you can indulge yourself in luxuries. And of course, this softens people. Everyone's going, well, you know, it's so bad. I don't own any property, but I'm still happy, kind of thing. You can see why the Great Reset is pushing at an open door to a degree. Well, these people just think, well, as long as I get I'll take the jab if I can go to Ibiza.
Yeah, I know. Radio 4 were like blatantly talking about Build Back Better today. It was just shameless. Oh no. So we got to do the dystopia, because I know we've done 1984 and we've done obviously Brave New World and stuff. But I rewatched a film, one of the few films I like, the other day. It's on Prime for free. The Island. Do you remember The Island? The Scottish guy is in it, Ian McEwan and Scarlett Johansson. Oh, it's good. I really like it. So
I like Scott. She's on my list of women I'm allowed to sleep with, be unfaithful with my wife.
Yeah, she's on my list. That girl is absolutely beautiful. But so The Island is I was watching it. You know, you rewatch it and you kind of put it into data. Is Sage's dream, because essentially what they are is these guys are clones. They're in a system. They don't know they're in a fake world, but they're in a fake world and they're clones. And the people outside, their sponsors who have cloned them, can harvest their organs and use them whenever they want, which will result in their death. Okay, they don't notice at the beginning, but at the beginning,
it's a bit like the in. Sorry,
Never Let Me Go.
Come back to me.
Yeah.
What's he called?
Never Let Me Go.
Never Let Me Go. I love that book.
But this
oh my God, he is such a good writer.
Yeah, but this is much swisher than that. You would probably prefer Never Let Me Go, but this is like super swish. And so they're in this kind of setting, and everything is really sterile. Everything's completely clean. They have to wear white. They can only eat certain things. So if your sodium count is up, for instance, you can't have bacon that morning. You can only have oatmeal. And you're looking at it and you're going, yeah, this is what these health fascists would want us to be like. You know, where we are just the perfect weight, and we get the perfect amount of sun, and we don't ever abuse our bodies, and everything is sterile and everything is clean. And of course, they can't touch each other. So obviously the Scottish guy has a bond with Scarlett Johansson. And but whenever they go close to each other, like touch each other's arm, the guy comes up and is like, separate, please. And he's like, I know the laws on proximity. And we're like, oh my God, this is the social distancing. You know, 10 years ago, This is the laws of proximity.
I've got to watch this.
It's good.
I sometimes wonder whether clues were put in our culture by people who knew. Like, for example, all the 70s conspiracy movies, they've all come true. The Parallax View, the 3 Days of the Condor, whatever.
Right.
The Matrix obviously told us exactly what's going on. The Island sounds very much
you'll enjoy
like it.
Yes. No, you should watch it. It's good.
But the thing that has really impressed me. Did you watch To the Lake? I know I tried to make you watch it.
You haven't.
Okay. Episode. What's very interesting is that the Russians, it was a Russian-made film, they totally get the Chinese. Somebody I know, I won't name names, said, "What has happened to Hollywood? In Hollywood now, you cannot say a single thing about the Chinese. You can't say anything critical.
They probably own them.
So Hollywood, apart from being a nest of Satanism and paedophilia, it turns out is also totally owned by the Chinese now. Now that's rather frightening, given the grip it has on the imagination of at least the left liberal part of America.
Well,
I think
everybody really, but no, I think they still.
Do you think so? Do you think? Do you still care about Hollywood films?
No,
I can't remember when I last watched one.
Yeah, no, I think other people do. Maybe. I mean,
are they making films now that aren't woke bollocks?
Most of it is woke nonsense. Absolute woke.
Because I saw it in the Telegraph. I mean, I don't read I don't want anyone to get the impression I read the Telegraph, but wife reads it, and I sometimes look across. And I saw page 3. The story was BAFTA unveils its most diverse shortlist ever, and I thought, how could I be less interested in a story than I am uninterested in this one? It's impossible. I simply could not look at a story like that and be remotely interested. Because if
crazy.
You start giving out prizes based on people's genetics or their heritage, that's kind of not the deal. I don't go to a movie and think, oh, is somebody black in this, or is somebody, oh, I hope somebody transgender's in this. No, I go, has it got a good story? Is the acting convincing? Do I buy this? That's all I care about. The rest is for the bird.
It's not about the story anymore. It's all about making political points. It's really, it's terrible. There aren't very good films out there. But there's just one last thing on the COVID, because I wanted to, because I flagged up at the beginning is, so did you see the story in the Mail? And you're going to have a lot of this. Actually, this is going to be so bad because they're going to get to write the history. So the line now is, Boris feels a bit sad that he didn't lock down earlier and harder. I'm blaming Sage because they didn't give me the right data. And I know there's a lot
Sage weren't hard enough.
Yes.
Sage
and then
weren't.
And I remember a question was put to either as an MP or the Cheltenham organizer, because Cheltenham is coming up very soon. It's like, well, Cheltenham went ahead last year with the crowd. Was that now a mistake? And I think even the Telegraph ran, the decisions that killed people. So this is the line now. In fact, that the lockdowns worked, and
the Telegraph said,
yeah, we didn't lock down harder or earlier, and we should just lock. Yeah, that's what it's going to be. All of it now, but somehow with Safe Boris, it was Sage's fault. It's going to be garbage, and the people are pushing for an inquiry into the decision making beforehand, which he will give eventually. But again, it will be like, why didn't you lock down earlier? Why did you let Cheltenham go ahead? Why didn't you killed my granny? That's what the inquiry will be.
What this is really about is stopping people associating freely and having conversations like, but Jesus, I think this COVID thing is bollocks. Bollocks, so it is. Well, that's what they're going to be doing on St. Paddy's Day, or they would have been doing at drinking the Guinness and at Cheltenham. I mean, it's outrageous to me that people are being denied the opportunity of congregating and watching racehorses.
Well, I
mean, that's what
I can imagine. Yeah, but I mean, there's no St. Patrick's Day, obviously, in Ireland right now. It's all virtual St. Patrick's Day. when it used to be obviously really big. They cancelled it last year. They cancelled it this year. Ireland is like, if you went there, you would probably think that Britain hasn't gone full fascist, because they really, there's like a
I agree.
5 kilometer
What's
limit.
happened to your people, your tribe, Laura?
Well, I don't know. One of my friends,
if I put money on,
essentially a lockdown refugee. She wouldn't say that, but she left the country. And went somewhere which she could go. And I'm thinking, you're actually a lockdown refugee. I don't know. They're very conformist. They like to think they're rebels. They're not. They've transferred all their loyalty from the Catholic Church to the state. They like to think, we really stuck it to the Catholic Church the last 20 years. And you're like, you have transferred every loyalty, every mindless, non-questioning aspect of your being to the state. If the government told you to stand on your head and wriggle your toes, they do it. It's sad to see. I mean, I can't get into it because it's actually upsetting. But if you notice, it's the same with Wales and Scotland. So people, the smaller countries that like to pride themselves on the, we battled the Brits and won, have gone the most extreme, right? They've gone the most controlling, judging, and sanctimonious.
It's true.
Yeah.
You think about New Zealand, the land of the haka, the land of the Maoris. You would have thought that this warlike race. Yeah. I mean, the Kiwis totally punched above their weights. They were quite stroppy, but they were good fighting soldiers at Gallipoli and in various campaigns in the the Second World War. Absolutely cut. Same with the Australians. I mean, it's really sad. Really sad.
No, I know it is sad, but what can you do? I know. Well, it's all Commonwealth as well. I mean, that's what's sad about it. When normally you would think Commonwealth is a bastion of liberty, they've really gone down. Okay, the Continentals haven't done well either. So I guess you could say it's pretty much everybody, but Sweden. And
everyone but Texas and Florida.
Yeah,
and Mississippi and a few others.
Yeah,
that's it. Oh, and Brazil. Of course. Oh, by the way, did you see this is the kind of story that doesn't get reported in the newspapers?
Yeah.
The president of Tanzania has disappeared.
What?
He's been punished for his skepticism about COVID. He famously tested was it a guava, I think, and he was absolutely mocking in the same way that the president of Belarus was,
right,
and of course Bolsonaro in Brazil. And these guys are being punished by this sinister international community, which wants to railroad through this vax tyranny, come what may. Because once you realise that the whole pandemic is essentially manufactured, it's not. This virus is no worse than any other bad flu year, and still people aren't saying this, even though it's obviously true. It's really sinister where you live in a world where sovereign nations are no longer sovereign, and where presidents that don't go along with this wicked agenda are taken out by the New World Order. That's what's happening.
Yeah, no, it's bad. It's bad. And look, I don't know what to say. They've got the old variant warmed up to sort of they can slam that down on the table whenever it suits them. They're already talking about a fourth wave next year. Who knows? And people have gone.
Oh well, no, they do, because they're going to create the fourth wave, and they can. That's the thing.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway,
let's go. Oh well.
I think.
What can you do? Go on.
I think we've delighted our fans enough, don't you? I think.
Yeah.
By the way, you've got lots of fans, Laura.
Oh, good.
I speak to people, and they talk about you like you're a personality, like you're a TV personality, like the weirdos might talk about Piers Morgan. The decent people talk about you, and they wonder. Some people say, "Oh, I think she's a bit gobby." Some say, "Oh, I love Laura. I can't get enough of her." So
no, that's good.
More power to your.
Fine word. We will. I mean, again, I've taken a week to think of it. You just thank God that Piers Morgan is not on your screens, because he would be front and center in demonizing the non-vaccinated. So this idea like he's some big loss is sort of, I don't know. It's just weird. So that is a win. That is actually a win.
That's not a very nice way to end the show, putting people's heads the thought of Piers Morgan on their screen.
Right. Well, we can just say, I don't know what we can say. Can
we do a Jedi mind trick, and you have not seen the Piers Morgan?
No, I mean, it's a win. I'm saying
it's not the man on your screen.
Yeah, well, he isn't. He isn't. No, it's just because you always bring up Toby Young, and then it just reminds me of, yeah, the lapdogs. There'll be plenty of lapdogging in the papers today. I can tell you that much. It's incredible.
Yeah, we can go and spot it. Well, those of us who read newspapers, and we can despise them.
We do.
Good.
Yes, we do.
We do. Well,
okay.
Thank you, Laura.
Take it easy.
Enjoy your week, and see you next week.
Okay. See you next week. Bye. Bye.
Bye.